Hello, Year 6. Today we're thinking about rhetorical questions and also about how we can use them and how we can use other skills within our writing to persuade. Initially, we're going to think about rhetorical questions generally, identify some, try and write some of our own, and finally we're going to read a text which is trying to persuade people to go somewhere, and which will form the model for how we write over the next 2 weeks. So rhetorical questions, it's a special type of talking is rhetoric, and rhetorical comes from rhetoric. Rhetoric is language which is used to try and influence people to do something, so to change their minds. So when we see rhetorical questions being used, the idea of them is to change somebody's mind. It's not actually to get them to answer something. The idea is fundamentally to get people to alter what they think. It does not need to be answered. That's really, really basically the most important thing to remember when you're thinking about a rhetorical question. It's something that is making a point, although it's framed as a question, it fundamentally doesn't need to be answered. So, an example, very relevant one, would be, do you want extra homework? And some of you, because you're wonderful children, might say, yes, Mr. Spring, we'd love some extra homework. However, realistically, I don't need you to answer because I know fundamentally you prefer not to have extra homework. So really, what I'm saying here is, if you don't do this, you will get extra homework. So I'm making a point rather than actually asking a question. Or it might be that rather than making an obvious point, like you don't really want extra homework, it's basically to make you think about something that you haven't empathized with yet, you haven't thought about yet. Okay, so what would happen to us if we didn't have parents? So here it's getting you to ponder something. You're not expected to answer it, but it's making you think, oh, that would not be a good situation. That would not help me if I was faced with that problem. Again, and adults do this a lot to you guys. We do this a lot to you as children. We ask you a question when in fact we're giving you an instruction. And it's not really fair, but it's something we do. Don't you want to help your mother? Means come and help. Wouldn't you like to see your teacher smile? Do what you're told. Lots of times we use rhetorical questions as a way of getting you to do things. Sometimes we think about rhetorical questions as a way of having a little internal conversation. So it's almost somebody's talking to you on one shoulder and you're having a conversation with yourself on the other shoulder. Do I have lots of money? No, I don't. But I work hard every day to get enough money for my family. So basically, this is where you're trying to use the rhetorical question to make the person who's being spoken to think about the things inside their head and change their opinion. They're a device which is used to change people's mind. Now, does the person asking the question really want to know some new information? If not, it's probably just a rhetorical question. It's a device used to make you think about something that you might not have thought of before. So there's some different questions here. I'll read them all out, and at the end of reading them, I want you to think about which ones you think are rhetorical. Do you want sugar in your coffee? Are they ever going to get hurt here? What's the price of this t-shirt? Really, you're crying about it. Are you 2 years old about something or something? Are you hungry? Now, if I say to you, do you want sugar in your coffee? I'm asking you a question. It's a normal question. Are they ever going to get here? Realistically, I know that they are going to get here. I'm making a point that they're taking a long time. So that's a rhetorical question. What's the price of this t-shirt? I want to know how much it costs so I can buy it. So I'm asking a real question there. Really? You're crying about it? There, I'm making the point that you just shouldn't be crying about that. What are you crying about that? Are you 2 years old or something? Now, I know that unless I'm talking to my daughter, nobody I'm talking to at the moment is 2 years old. So I know I'm making a point that somebody's acting either maturely if they're one or immaturely if they're older than one. And therefore, when I say that, it's a rhetorical question making a point. Are you hungry? It's a bit of a tricky one because that could be a rhetorical question. They're saying, are you hungry? But really, that's a real question because I'm offering you some food. So the ones that are rhetorical to pick down. Your task now is to think about a rhetorical question that could be for this and could be against it. So if we're having a debate about whether you should be allowed your mobile phones in school, I know some of you like to have them. Can you think of a rhetorical question which would be in favour of that, and then one that would be against that? I'll just say a couple of examples now. So, for example, one in favour would be, do you want us to get lost on the way home and have no way of phoning our parents? Or, as a for example, and as an against example, do you think it's a good idea for children to walk around with things which are worth hundreds of pounds? So both of those are examples where I'm making a point, although I'm presenting it as a question. Again, could you have an idea for this? So the question is, the broad debate is it hard to be a teenager? Now you're all approaching the age in the next 2 or 3 years whether you'll become one. So is it one question which says it is, one question which says it isn't? I look forward to reading those, if you could write those as your examples. Now here, between A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I, we've got some rhetorical questions and some which are not. So I'd like you to copy down any which you think are rhetorical questions. Okay, next one. This sheet you've got, I'd like you to write some examples of rhetorical questions which could support somebody in making a point. So it might be that you want somebody to give you their lunch. So you wouldn't want me to go hungry, would you? Again, a question that doesn't need answering, a question which is making a point. So think about some of those rhetorical questions we saw earlier. Are you 2 years old or something? So have a think about which ones of these you could write underneath these and then fill them in, please. Pause the video whilst you do that. Now, the reason we're looking at rhetorical questions is because they're a device which helps people to persuade. It helps people to understand an opinion that they need to change their mind towards. Today, you're going to read this text, Roald Dahl Land. It's about an invented place, which is a theme park, basically, where people could go and see evidence of Roald Dahl. Now, what we're going to do over the next 2 weeks is build towards writing our own persuasive advert for Charles Dickens Land, somewhere which doesn't exist yet, but you're going to invent based on your knowledge of A Christmas Carol and other books by Charles Dickens. I'd like you to read through this text today, and after you've read through this text, I'd like you to have a look at the sheet which is attached to it and try and answer these questions which relate to it. By doing that, you'll become more familiar with the information held within the text, and you will also become more familiar with the devices which are used by the writer to try and persuade people to visit this invented land. So, essentially, 2 tasks: read this text and then answer these questions. And these are all real questions. These are questions which I'd like you to think about. I look forward to reading your responses, and I look forward to discussing more about Roald Dahl Land and the way that